Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, everyone. I'm Usman Siddiqui, joining from Manchester, UK. I'm a researcher and currently working on an engineering and physical science research council funded project called Ocean Refuel, where we investigate the potential of using offshore wind and marine renewable energy to produce zero carbon hydrogen and ammonia fuels. Though I'm joining you remotely today, it is a real pleasure to be part of this academic gathering in Lahore, which is my hometown and a place very close to my heart. So many thanks to the Leeds University for the kind invitation and the opportunity to contribute to this timely and very important conversation. Now, I've been asked to talk about integrating social science disciplines across the globe in 8 to 10 minutes. And you know that asking any academic to say something meaningful in under 10 minutes is like asking a committee to reach consensus. In theory, it is definitely possible, but it rarely happens in practice. But I'll definitely try my level best. However, before I talk about academic integration across borders, I want to say a few words about the need to bridge gaps between different academic disciplines and institutions at home in Pakistan. Because while integrating knowledge and research is definitely an important pursuit, it doesn't really start at the immigration counter. It starts much earlier than that. We need to first practice this with other disciplines and departments in our own universities or with other universities in our own cities. And this is important not just because it is trendy, but because real breakthroughs often happen at the intersection of these disciplines. As Thomas Kuhn noted, that paradigm shifts in science usually come from outsiders, not the seasoned experts, but the ones crossing boundaries, those who have been trained in other disciplines. Max Planck was even more blunt about it when he said that the science advances one funeral at a time. And the reason for this is because when we become an expert in a field, we often get a deep, almost instinctive command of our subject. We have done the readings, mastered the jargons, internalized the methods, and can navigate the theoretical landscape with ease. So the subject matter becomes our second nature, what Daniel Kahneman might call system one thinking, intuitive, largely unconscious, um, and it comes almost effortlessly, and that's become our comfort zone. But that comfort often makes us lose our ability to see beyond our own interdisciplinary understanding, and we are trapped in the set of assumptions and blind spots that we do not even notice. So, this is the reason we see sociologists, psychologists, and anthropologists working on engineering projects these days. Because when we scale up a new technology, we need to understand how people feel about it. Will they accept it, trust it, or eventually use it? We have several examples where local resistance to mega projects was simply waved away as NIMBYism, or worse, in case of Pakistan, as unpatriotic, without trying to understand what's really going on there. It's often about memories of being left out or let down by the same governments or developers that are now asking for their trust again. But it's very hard for those communities in small towns and provinces in periphery to keep sacrificing for the development of the large cities. And to understand these nuances, we need different perspectives at the table. So the idea is every discipline has its own blind spots. And nowhere in this world it is more visible than in countries like ours, where our disciplines have not even developed their own theories. And we see that borrowed theories and imported frameworks are applied to the local realities like a poorly translated novel. So before we talk about integrating social sciences globally, we need to start breaking down the silos at home and build an intellectual ecosystem where ideas can move freely across disciplines, across institutions, and yes, across borders. I'm a policy scientist, for example, now with an early training in political science, working in psychology department on an engineering and physical science project. This is how interdisciplinary research has become nowadays, and that's where the future lies for the interdisciplinary studies in Pakistan as well. Now, I'll come to the question of integrating our academic disciplines globally. For that, in my opinion, we have to get a few things right at home first. First thing that I have already talked about is the need for cross-disciplinary training. We need to move beyond the rigid departmental boundaries that we have and to rethink how we prepare the next generation of our scholars with the complexity of the real world. Second, and the most important thing, in my opinion, is the need to focus more on research methods. Because if there is one thing that can unite disciplines, is the shared language of data and analysis. But let's be honest there, most of our social science students and sometimes faculty, especially in political science, they struggle to make sense of a well written quantitative paper in a reasonably good journal, let alone writing one. And that's not a personal feeling, it's a systemic one. They have never been trained that way. The method courses we are teaching them are very superficial, sometimes practically useless. And I often quote this thing that there is this very popular complaint in academia that the state ignores us or the government and media don't consult academia. I remember a few years ago, I asked a room full of experts that can anyone name a few high quality policy relevant studies from our scholars that the government ignored, and we suffered a lot for that. And there was silence. No one had a real answer. So maybe the issue isn't that we are being ignored, it's just that we are easy to ignore because our work is not of that standard. So, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that we need to seriously invest in methodological training at home before we can expect any meaningful collaborations abroad. We need to train our academics and scholars in methods that are basic requirement of any international collaboration. Lastly, we need some institutional reforms. Our universities often function like bureaucracies. The department works in silos, and there is very little institutional incentive for a political economist to team up with a cultural geographer, for example. Universities and funding bodies need to prioritize cross-cutting themes, because if the incentives don't change, the outcomes won't either. Everywhere in the world, multidisciplinary collaboration isn't just encouraged anymore, it's practically a requirement if you want your grant application to survive the first round. Another thing with regard to institutional reforms is the need for flexibility, because research collaborations, especially in interdisciplinary ones, uh, you know, they almost never unfold exactly as planned. Ideas evolve, questions shift, methods adapt. That's the nature of good research. It's not an anomaly. And our institutions and funding bodies need to understand that research teams must have the space to be creative and to redefine their plans as the results starts coming. The current funding and audit system in Pakistan is sometimes so frustrating that many scholars, who have worked on any project, sometimes think twice before applying again, and that's a loss we can't afford. Anyways, enough about the challenges, and let's focus on the opportunities now. Pakistan is a gold mine for interdisciplinary research. A young, dynamic, and diverse society full of contradictions. It's an environment where informal economies thrive, technology meets traditions, entrepreneurs flourish despite medieval governance systems that we have, and risks and vulnerabilities are met with resilience. From a researcher's point of view, this is gold, because this is where the big questions live. But we need the right skills and tools to mine those insights. Another good thing is that the global landscape is shifting, making it increasingly easier for countries like ours to engage in global conversations. Several platforms are now offering opportunities for researchers from different disciplines and countries to co create knowledge. Open access journals, shared data repositories, and virtual conferences are helping scholars overcome traditional barriers and enter into global conversations directly. Today, for example, a student in Multan can attend a course in MIT, contribute to a project in Nairobi, or publish with collaborators in the United States. And all of this can be done in a single room with a stable internet connection. And at this point, I would like to say a few things to the students in the room, that you have more power over your learning than ever before. But it requires you to be proactive. Almost every resource that you could need is now just a few clicks away. If your institution isn't offering the courses or the training you need, Don't wait. Go online, find a right platform, and start learning those skills yourself. And more importantly, please do not hesitate to reach out. Professors and academics around the world in UK, US, Europe, Australia, especially those from Pakistani diaspora, they are often incredibly willing to support and guide students back home. But you have to make the first move. In the end, I would like to say that this is a very pertinent topic that the organizers have selected for this conference, and it is the right time to join the global conversations directly and reshape them from within. However, any efforts for this integration shouldn't be about signing some, you know, symbolic MOUs. We need to shift the current structure of the global collaboration where knowledge tends to flow from the global north to the global south. Any efforts that we are going to make to collaborate with the outside world should be about co-producing knowledge on equal terms in shared languages and with mutual respect for the different worldviews. With this, I once again thank the conference organizers for the opportunity to be part of this discussion, and thank you everyone. Assalamu alaikum.